Welcome to the Provo Dating Coach podcast. Today, I am so excited to have a very special guest. I'm very excited about this conversation. Our special guest is Douglas Belshey. Welcome to the podcast, Douglas. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I just really appreciate you inviting me on.
Thank you for being with us. I think your perspective is going to be super valuable to a lot of guys and women too. If there are going to be women, I'm sure that are going to see this. And to introduce Douglas, we have Douglas Belshey with Sovereign Design. He is using his experience to help mentor others looking to maintain peace and overcome hardship. He's a certified life coach, but mostly looking to help others by sharing how the gospel of Jesus Christ is being supported by the contemporary thought leaders of today. Welcome, Douglas. We're so glad to have you.
So glad to be here. So thank you.
So,
Yeah, that was a great intro.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your time. And I think something that I'm really excited about to have the conversation is how old are you, Douglas?
I'm about to hit 44 this year.
You're about to hit 44. That's awesome. So a lot of guys that listen to this are a little bit younger than that. And I think there's always good wisdom in good mentorship and someone who has more experience. So Douglas, could you tell us like what is your story and how have you gotten to the point that you're at now as a life coach and also just in your life in general?
I was born in the church, did all the, growing up in the church type of things, right? Went to church, had, family home evening, decided to go serve a mission, ended up going to the Dominican Republic and had some really life-changing experiences there that kind of gave me a sure witness of the gospel. I came home, didn't really know what I was doing, eventually ended up in Utah where I met the mother of my kids and we got married in 2005. We went through the marriage, ended up being kind of a difficult marriage on both sides, but there was a lot of really good things about it. Honestly, the greatest privilege I have in my life is being a father. And I have two amazing kids. I have a son who's 18, who's in Lima, Peru, serving a mission. And I have a daughter who's a senior who has made the decision that she wants to go serve a mission. I am really excited for them just because the mission really had a great impact on my life as far as building confidence, learning how to have like conversation with other people and kind of come to know myself a little bit better. And so I'm excited for them. But I lived in Hawaii on a off-grid piece of property, and we as a family decided to move there. I lived with other members of my family. At that point, the mother of my kids made a decision that she wanted to live a life that was more of what she wanted. And so we decided to get a divorce, and she ended up moving back here to Utah. I ended up going through a lot of self growth and decision. It wasn't a divorce because any one of us did anything crazy, right? It was almost like a death by a thousand cuts. And I really wanted to take accountability for what my part was in that divorce. But ultimately, in time, what I've realized is we just both fundamentally wanted completely different things. And she's made the decisions for herself that aligns with her. And she's happily remarried now. And she's living a life that she really enjoys and is happy with. And I'm really happy for her. I'm creating a life that I'm really happy with, finding peace in what I want. And along that journey of self discovery, I did a lot of like self growth, right? A lot of podcasts, a lot of books, a lot of internal perspective and awareness. It led me to a path of wanting to be a coach. And a lot of that was to become a better father. I wanted better skills in order to help my kids. And so the greatest thing out of life coaching that I learned was to hold space for others and that it's not about the answers you have, but about the questions that you ask. And that just really helped me have a better understanding of how to be compassionate ultimately in the end, a skill that I didn't have that I had to cultivate over a period of time. So that leads us kind of where we're at now. I have taken the time to apply some of the things that I teach into my own life, to use as experience. And I'm still learning, right? Like, I'm sure you can relate. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to apply the things that I understand to be true. I'm not perfect. I've got so much to like go through. But the biggest difference between where I was just 3.5 years ago to where I am now is that I feel like I have this peace in my life. And I understand what I need to do for myself in order to become the individual I want to be.
I want to highlight something you said right there. You said you have peace in your life, and that is so powerful and so amazing. And, life is not always hunky dory, just beautiful and fun and easy and happy all the time. But coming to a point where you can consistently find a good level of peace in your life, it is so important, especially for I see it all the time with singles that I work with, whether it's men or women, where they're like, I can't be happy until I'm married. I see that mindset a lot. And it's just important that we come to peace regardless of our circumstances, and we it takes work to get to that point as
Yeah.
well.
And to be
So,
honest, I wasn't aware of that, right? Like, I was a good guy, right? Like, I can say I was a good guy. I tried my best to be a good husband, a good father, but I just fundamentally realized there were just behaviors and aspects and skill sets that I just didn't have. And I didn't have like a mentor around me to like teach me these things, right? Like, I have a good father, I have a good mother and a good family, but none of them were necessarily in a place or able or willing to like give me that mentorship to so that I better knew what to do. And so what the divorce kind of gave me was an opportunity for me to like look at within myself and go, who do you want to be? What's important to you? And you know, you know, basically the realization I had was no one was coming to save me. Like, I had to figure it out on myself. And that like message repeats in my mind all the time. Like, no one's coming to save me, as in they're not going to be making the decisions for me. Like, they may give advice, they may hold space for me and be compassionate and loving, but ultimately in the end, I've got to decide what's best for me. And that's the piece that's come to my mind, right? Like, that's the piece I'm living is like, hey, I love it when people want to support me and they want to love me and they want to give me advice, and we can build a good relationship together. But ultimately, I have to make the decisions on the type of behaviors I feel are best and the kind of father or future husband or just man in general I want to be.
yeah. Oh man, that is so good, so powerful. And, follow-up question to that. So you felt like you didn't have any solid mentors. Like you had loving people in your life, but really it's up to you, like what you do and who you become. Where did you turn for wisdom and guidance and developing into who you wanted to be and
Great,
figuring that out?
great question. The I have to thank my parents for giving me a foundation, right? Like, they weren't necessarily ones to be able to lead me in this modern day. I mean, it's modern day dating and like thing, like they are not aware of that, right? Like, they're not aware of like what it's like. And there's also a lot of there's just differences in the modern day, right? But they gave me a foundation in the gospel. And if there's anything my parents did right, was giving me that foundation, and I'm extremely grateful for that. They gave me kind of the initial tools I needed in order to move along. But ultimately, the greatest experience I had after divorce was I was walking down this dirt path I would walk every single day to gain awareness, maybe answer my own questions, kind of have conversations with myself, and find try to like I was just struggling, right? I was just struggling after the divorce, and I was trying to regulate my own emotions with it. And so in that, I had it like hit me like a thunderbolt. You are a son of God. And then I was like, what does that even mean? Right? Like, okay, great. I'm a son of God. I've heard that since I was in primary forever, right? Like, I'm a son of God. And so I started thinking, what does that mean? Like, what does it really mean to be a son of God? Do I actually believe it? Do I, is this who I am? Am I this kind of man that believes this? And that just led me down the path of a lot of different questions, a lot of different things to answer for myself. And ultimately, it leaned into having a lot of very raw, very vulnerable conversations with God and Jesus Christ, and coming closer to my Heavenly Father and building a relationship with them. That ultimately is what ended up being and is continuing to this day the foundation that I have. Not in the dear Heavenly Father, here's a list of things I have and I want and I need, but more of like, man, I'm feeling this way. This is real. Like I'm hurting, or I was really happy about that. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this girl I'm talking to. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm really excited about where life is. Or, oh my gosh, I'm moving back to Utah. I've got to get back into a career I thought I left behind. This is really hard. And like having those really raw, old, vulnerable conversations. And there was a benefit to that. Not only am I praying to my Heavenly Father, but I'm also speaking it out loud, right? Like I'm getting it out of my brain and out of my head, where we can just kind of turn it over and over again. And I'm being honest and real with like what I'm thinking and feeling. So I'm just really grateful for that.
Yeah. So, can you highlight again what was the main benefit of having those kind of conversations with God for you?
Yeah. Main benefit to having those conversations was one, speaking it out loud. And two, I have built like a genuine relationship with my Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. They're not these divine beings of such like immense difference between them and me that I can't relate to them. Like I truly believe they're people that care about me. They love me. They're aware of me. And I have conversations with them and I trust them. And they don't, speak back like, other humans do. But there's this sense of like, they just hold space for me. And I can sense that like, they don't fault me for being a frail, imperfect man who has a lot to learn, things to improve on. They see me with pride and joy and happiness that I'm even trying, that I'm putting into action and I'm attempting to do these things. And so I'm just super grateful for that connection of a real relationship, not just a behavior we've been told to do over a long period of time because we're members of the church.
Yeah. So you really felt the power of prayer. It changed your relationship with God, and that being connected with our Father in heaven really is so transformational and powerful. So I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you for sharing your experience on that. Um, so let's jump into dating a little bit.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
do it.
so post divorce, I you're the first person on my podcast that I've talked to about dating after divorce.
These are great
And
conversations to have because there's a difference between the two.
yeah, um, so what is it like dating now post divorce for you? What's your experience? And And do you think it would be different if you had never been married, but you're still single at this point in your life? Like
Yeah, like the never nevers. That's what we call them in the older divorce group. So it's never been married, never had kids, right?
the
And
never
then you
nevers.
have
Okay.
the divorced individuals that do have kids. So there's like two different groups within the same group, and so there's differences between the two. And I've dated, it's probably close to 50-50 of dating either people that have never been married and never had kids, or divorced with kids. I would say my experience, to be honest, like honestly, genuinely, this is a very genuine answer, is that I have found it to be an absolute privilege to date women post divorce. I have learned so much about myself. I have become more aware of things that I'm good at, but also a lot of things that I need to improve on. I've learned what women want, what they need, what's important. I've learned how attracted I am to good mothers that care about their families and their children. I've learned how much I appreciate the gospel and how important it is to want to have a relationship, to want to have a wife again. I I truly, truly get moved every time I think about the opportunity and the privilege I'll have to sit at the altar or kneel at the altar again and make covenants with a woman. And so the excitement, the uncertainty is almost it's fearful, but it's also exciting, and being able to be like, hey, this could be the one, and it's not about projecting like, oh my gosh, we're going to get married and all that. It's just the excitement that in this process of getting to know this individual, this could be the individual. And I've had the experience of wanting to choose someone to be my wife, and they ultimately did not want to choose me. And I've had uh, situations where individuals wanted to move forward with me, but I didn't feel like it was comfortable or the right thing for me. And so, I've been in the situation, but so that's been my experience. And we can maybe talk about the differences and like different things, but that's been my experience. It's really hard. Like, I'll be honest, like, I hate being ghosted so much. It is a frustrating thing. I get ghosted constantly. It's like, I'm a pretty straightforward, I'll approach someone. I'm not afraid of approach. I'm not afraid of taking the initiative and doing those types of things. It's hard to get someone even on a phone call, on a FaceTime, on a Marco Polo. Like, it has been my experience that it's very difficult to even get to that point. Like, I try to look at their profile and make good remarks on what I read and what I saw and be complimentary. I try to get them, in conversation, but it has been difficult. But once I can go on a date and I actually start getting to know them, it has been an absolute privilege. I can name names and what I've learned from them. I can learn what I've learned about myself because of them. And I'm just super, super grateful to be able to date such amazing women and have that opportunity, because one day one of these women are going to choose me, and they're going to be the greatest assets in my life. So it's worth the effort I put in to becoming more attractive to attract the kind of woman I want in my life.
Yeah, I love that. So something interesting I want to ask, like dive deeper on, is what's an area that you've seen a lot of personal growth in your dating experience post divorce? Like, is there something specific that you could share?
Yeah. I want to give it up to the first girlfriend I had. It was a very short girlfriend, but we had a 6-month relationship. Is maybe there was a lot of roller coasters, but I was having to discover a lot about myself post divorce. Myself, as far as the hurt that I still had and the triggers that would come from a new relationship because of that old relationship, the projection I would have because of the my marriage, and the difficulties, the fears I had, some intimacy difficulties. I felt, kind of afraid to be, intimate in any kind of way with a new woman. I'd been married for 17 years, and I had a lot of self-conscious kind of insecurities that came around that it took some time. It took just a simple conversation with her to overcome it, but she really was patient with me, and she was awesome with understanding that we were both healing from different things and overcoming. And it just, we were just really good with having really hard conversations, and we had a lot of them. And so that communication and that vulnerability just really opened up a lot that I personally could do to improve, to one, have more self confidence, as well as how to approach or maybe meet the needs of a relationship, because every relationship has completely different needs because you have two completely different humans coming together. And so it was kind of learning how to be flexible within relationships and being understanding and forgiving and ultimately compassionate with the individual.
Yeah, I love that. So it sounds like that relationship was just very healthy and
It was a very healthy relationship. I mean, yes,
not a
it was
perfect
a
relationship,
healthy
but
relationship, but there was like unhealthy aspects to it, right? And so no relationship is going to be perfect, but it was very beneficial for me in getting into this new world of becoming who I want to become and seeking for a wife that I want, which all and it ends up being an internal changing behaviors to become more attractive and to attract the kind of people you want in your life.
yeah, yep, exactly. And I think that story and experience is really awesome because, you know, when you're in a relationship, you kind of have this mirror of I'm projecting all of my issues and things that trigger me, like they're going to come up in the relationship. It's an opportunity to see those things reflected back at you. Like, oh, this is what triggers me. These are some of my issues. And so it's beautiful. The human experience is beautiful to have relationships.
And I've had that
Relationships.
time and time again. Every person I've dated that I've gone on more than, let's say, one date, right? Every single one of those is a mirror to me because each one of them is comes from a different perspective of life. They have different stories, they have different experiences. And when you mesh those two things together, when you're trying to find that attraction and trying to find that like um, understanding if an eternal relationship is best for the two of you, man, it is a very difficult but beautiful journey in what you learn along the way.
Yeah. So let me ask you a simple question here. Is dating post-divorce easier or harder than it was when you were younger in like your 20s?
Way harder. Like not even close.
What's
Way harder.
harder about it?
It's I think the simple way to put it is when you're young, say I'm coming off my mission and I'm going and I'm dating. There's a lot of similarities, right? You've got to approach, you've got to talk, you've got to all of those things are the same, right? How you actually attract and meet and converse and go on these dates. That's all kind of the same. I would say where I'm at now and the women I typically date, what makes it much more difficult is when you're young, you have no life, essentially. You are starting to build this life. You're starting to go in a direction and you are having simple conversations like, hey, I want to be this and this is what I'm going to school for. And typically you're meeting someone at the same school that you are going to or in the same city, in the same town. And so it's almost like you get to build a life from the start together. Here, in many of the circumstances that I'm at, you have to blend a life. You have divorce decrees that come into effect. You have children and children needs. You have careers and locations and different things that kind of make it much more difficult to blend that life. I've found it difficult to date here in Utah, not because I don't like women from Utah. Sometimes I wonder if women from Utah like me. But I have found that the vast majority of my relationships are long distance. Every one of my girlfriends have been a long distance relationship and it's been much more difficult to navigate all of those things and the long distance because ultimately someone's going to have to sacrifice a lot in order to blend that life together and make sure that it happens. It's not that it can't happen, it's that I think a lot of the reason why people are hesitant is because that those are big sacrifices to make, especially when it comes down to your children or career and those types of things.
Yes, that's so big. It can be maybe the biggest sacrifice to your kids or the other person's kids. Yeah. So let me double click on that. Do you
Yeah.
feel like it would be easier if you had never been married or don't have kids to date now? Or like
Um,
I know you probably would never like you
yeah,
always
yeah,
want
I
your
get your
kids,
point. Like,
right?
of course,
But
I would never like the best thing that came out of the marriage I had were my 2 kids. And that's the point you're getting to. So that's
Yes.
not really the question. Uh, so I've dated a number of never never. It's hard, right? Because now you have individuals that have never been married and never had kids, but yet the vast majority of people that they can date or people that have been married and have had kids. And there is a tricky balance because then it's like sometimes they're like, how, what do I say, what do I do, how do I approach this, or there's a judgment towards them like, oh, you don't know, you've never been married, or you don't know because you have never had kids. And that's unfair to them, right? Because they're still adults. I've dated a number of teachers that have had a lot of experience with children. They're just as capable of maintaining, maybe even better at aspects. Not all of us married parents are good parents, right? Like there's a lot that we need to do to improve and be better at. And so I think that's unfair. But there are some aspects that is difficult to like explain or to communicate that you gain from having that experience of being married or that experience of having children that is hard to like articulate with individuals. So would it be easier? I would say no. I don't think it would be easier. I think it's, there's different complexities, different hardships. I still think it's easier to just get married, soon after a mission, soon after. I'm not like pushing like get married right away. I say gain as many skills as you can, know exactly what a marriage is really requiring, and know the differences between men and women and what your part is going to play in, meeting the needs of that relationship. No relationship should be just rushed into by any means. And I don't think the church pushes that. I just think the church pushes that you should get married. Like, don't let marriage not to be a part of it. Don't let, careers get in the way of having a family. But they're not saying rush into it. They're not saying, do it blindly and not know what you're getting into. They're not saying those things. We all need to have skills in order to approach. And that's where I probably would have done differently. I wish I would have had a better understanding. You just know I should do this. You don't necessarily know what are the basic needs that I need to know going into this relationship.
So you didn't feel like you had the tools or the knowledge of here's what I should look for in a partner to have a happy, successful marriage. Like you
Yeah,
felt
I
maybe
think that would be
unprepared.
I think that's a very appropriate answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. I want to come back to that with another question in a minute. But I do want to ask your perspective on this question. Do you feel like it's better to be single than to be in the wrong relationship? Like, or I mean, what's your
Yes.
thought on that? Maybe
With
there's
a
a way to
caveat.
spin that.
So yeah, so yes with a caveat. Yes, it's better to be single than to be in the wrong relationship. But you need to ask yourself, do I really want to be in a relationship or do I just need validation? Do I really want to get married and that's why I'm on a dating app? Or am I bored? Am I distracted? Do I need validation? Right? I think it comes down to those things. You have to really have clear intentions on what you're doing. Are you just getting in to have a situationship because you're fine with the early steps of a relationship, but you have commitment issues? You know, you have to really know yourself and you have to really know it is not fair to the rest of the people in the dating pool if you are unsure of what your intentions are and what you're doing. You really need to know so that your intentions can be clear because many of us that are in the dating pool do have clear intentions. They do know what they want and they are willing to put in the effort needed in order to make that happen. When you do that with someone who doesn't have clear intentions, man, does it feel like you just waste a lot of time.
Right. Yes, so much time. And I love that. The one of the first things that I go over with guys that I coach is clarity. Getting clarity on what you want. And there's this awesome book by a guy named Brendan Burchard. high performance habits, he talks about 6 habits of high performers. And the number one thing is getting clarity, like being clear about your intentions, what you're after. And when we have clarity, we approach things from a better perspective. We get more success in our endeavors. It's really so essential. So I love how you answered that question. Like it's it's better to be single than to be in the wrong relationship, but I think you need to be, like you said, you need to be clear about your intentions, what you're after. And also,
And I want to just step in here real quick. For men, it is known. For men, they do much better in life in a relationship. They succeed more, they fulfill their dreams better. Like take every aspect of life. They do much better in a relationship. And so they benefit more from a relationship than women do. Women are just naturally tribal. They can get a lot of the things that men need out of a relationship from other relationships with women. And so there is a vast difference between the two. That doesn't make either one more important. Women get a lot out of a marriage as well. But men, it is proven that men get a lot more out of a relationship. So any men wondering if they should get married or not, if you are going after big things in your life and you pick the right woman, she will be the greatest asset in your life, guaranteed.
that's exactly right. And that's what I wanted to hit home. Like if you get into a relationship where the woman, instead of elevating your life and helping you, supporting you, is tearing you down, holding you back, pulling you back, that's how you know, hey, this isn't helping my life. This isn't a good thing. Um, but the thing I would say is, regardless of where anyone is at in their life, whether you're in a relationship that's not going well, or you're in a relationship that's awesome, or you come from a failed relationship, the beautiful truth is said so well in Romans 8. I believe it's verse 28. Maybe it's 8:28, I believe. It says, "For we know that all things shall work out for their good to them that love God." And really, like, it doesn't matter the evil things that we experience or the bad things or the hard things that we experience, God can create them to be a good thing. So I just wanted to hit that home, that we can trust in God, we can love God. And you know how you talked about, Douglas, connecting and having a stronger relationship with God is really powerful, and that allows those things, whether you get divorced or whether you're dealing with health challenges or whatever it is, he can help you, and
Yeah.
he can create it into a good thing.
I want to add to that. Everything you said is exactly right. And I just want anyone that's watching this to understand if there's anything I learned. I spent the entire year last year focused on agency. I was in the temple one day and I just was, in an endowment session, and it talked about, that Satan was cast out of heaven for rebellion because he sought to take away the agency of man. And so I just focused on that agency. Like, we have more control over our life than we even understand. And when you then use that agency, no matter your circumstances, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are, you can improve your life, whatever your circumstances are. But if you then connect that with God, it's just extremely powerful.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That is so good. And the reason our agency is so powerful, I think, is because we're children of God. You know, we have potential to be like him. And that's powerful. You know,
Yeah.
we
I
just
mean,
use our agency.
exactly. I mean, the thing that has brought me the most peace is the only thing I need to focus on is to diligently strive to be better every single day. Just like in Atomic Habits, get 1% better every single day. And like that, if that is your focus, good will happen to you. It is bound to happen. The compounding effect of just constantly striving every day to be a little bit better eventually will help us become like God and to have all that God has over a millennia of time. But it's that small and simple, steps that we take that really have a huge impact. And I know a lot of us, me included, often we think of all the things that need to be done, and it becomes overwhelming. And there's this anxiety around all of it. Specifically maybe in dating, you're like, I've got all these things I need to improve on, or I'm not good at anything, or whatever it might feel like you're making this all inclusive thing. But if you just take a breath and go, I don't need to worry about everything today, but what's the one thing I could do that either one draws me closer to God, or one draws me closer to being where a woman, I attract a woman into my life, right? So maybe I'm just super, maybe I'm not even on an app. Maybe I don't even approach a woman. Maybe, whatever the thing is, that's the biggest barrier between you and what you want. Taking that like initial action can be like climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah. Yes. I love that. So let's shift gears a little bit, dive deeper into dating and what you see. Like, what are the biggest struggles that you see? I know you've mentioned ghosting, and
Yeah,
it sounds like from what you say, like mostly how you find people to date is through dating apps. Like, I'm just
it
kind
is.
of
For
inferring
me
that, but
personally, I really enjoy being at the family ward with my daughter. It brings me a lot of joy, right? Like that is makes me really happy. But she's leaving, she's about to go on a mission. And I've already made the decision that like it's not my place to stay in a family ward. I should go to a singles ward. And that's where I should probably be. Um, but I mean, what have I found that's like difficult within, how I connect with people or anything like that? Like I do use the app, Mutual. Most of us that are LDS, we're on the Mutual app. And what I find to be difficult is just being attracted to someone who I find really compelling and interesting, and have them even respond back to me. They match with me, but getting that like initial response, like why did you hit match? It's like the most frustrating thing to me, because if I'm on an app and I match with someone, I am committed to at least one conversation with this individual, at least one. Otherwise, don't match. And I think there's this choice paradox that everyone is living in, where there's so much choice. And so it's like paralysis by analysis. They just can't make a decision, or there's just so many options. There's a lot of things that go along with it. But I just don't fundamentally think that the apps are broken. I will never blame an app. I think it's the people within the apps that are broken, but the apps have helped perpetuate or maybe sift to the surface some of our poor behaviors and different things that we do. And so my difficulty for sure is getting that initial contact, because I truly believe that if I can get that first conversation, that first FaceTime, either I will know if I'm attracted, I feel connection, there's some chemistry there, because I have a rule. I have a rule that I won't go on a first date unless I have FaceTimed or done like a Marco Polo. There is so much to mannerisms that is attractive or unattractive. And it's to no fault of the other person. You just kind of get a sense if you enjoy being with that person, or enjoy listening to them talk, or enjoy those types of things. And, as a divorced individual who I try to manage my money well and different things like that. And I know you can go on many of different dates without spending money and all that kind of stuff, but it can get expensive. And I just want to save each other time by just having that initial conversation. Instead of that awkward first date, sometimes you're just like, "Whoa, they don't look like anything on the app, they have on their profile," or, "Oh, I knew within." Like, I remember this one date I went on. I'll just give you an example. Um, was meeting up with this girl. We were going to go out. Met on the app. Hadn't had any conversation besides text. We set up a time. We're going out to dinner. I'm standing there. Just her walking towards me, I knew immediately that there wasn't going to be a connection. But I had committed, right? So I ask her all the questions. We have a great dinner. We go through, and it was educational in the aspect of like I learned a lot about myself and I learned a lot about what was important. But there's just something to mannerisms, conversation, individual that kind of connects you to people. And it's no fault of her own, but she doesn't want someone like myself that like maybe feels a little annoyed or agitated or, things just feel off. And that's a me thing, but it's a real thing, right? Like it's not that she's wrong or that I'm broken. It's just reality. It's just the human connection.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that's an awesome rule. I think anyone using dating apps should have a rule like, or they should have a set of rules actually, guiding principles. Here's how I use this as a tool to improve my dating life and work towards my goals in dating. I think for women, especially, safety rules are important.
Mhm.
For men, I teach like what you preach right there, Douglas. Like I won't meet up on a date until I say like at least a voice call or a video call of some type. But I think that's a fantastic rule because it's not just your money that you're spending, it's your time. And if you're trying to get married and you're going on, let's just say, I'm not saying you're going on this many dates or not, but if you're like, I teach guys to go on about 2 dates per week. Like that's kind of ideal to like um, get good options and make good progress and go kind of quickly of meeting different people and getting exposed
Are
so that
men having that opportunity? I hear a lot that men are struggling having that opportunity to go on those number of dates unless you're in like the top 10% of men. Have you seen that maybe within the LDS community and because of the mutual app, are you finding that they're actually able to, even if like in actually trying, that they're actually are able to get that many kind of dates?
yes, I would say so. I'd say everyone has a different kind of situation, different struggles in dating, but um, you don't need to be like the top 10% in I'm the top 10% of handsome or, whatever to get there. I What I've found is with the right strategy and approach, you can work your way up to there. Now it takes time and it doesn't always happen. And sometimes it's just a continual struggle and just because of life situations, like some people only use dating apps because of time constraints.
Yeah.
That might be a limiting factor there. um, so is it possible for everyone? I'm not sure, but it is optimal is what I
Yeah.
will say.
Yeah.
and and the reason I bring this up is because if you don't do a video call before and find out, okay, I'm actually not interested in them, you just wasted like one of your evenings going on a date that you shouldn't have gone on, right? And time is super expensive. It's
And
more
women do
valuable
take
than
a lot of
money.
time to get ready too, and there's other things on both ends, right? That is just I'll be honest. I do believe we live in a society where we are easily offended by different things and we are skittish, maybe is like the best approach, maybe best way to say it, but like every little thing makes us like insecure about ourselves or something like that. But the reality is you're not going to be attractive to everybody and you're not going to be attracted to everybody. There is just a natural sense of one biology, natural selection that we have. There are things you can do to improve that, but even if you become your best self, you won't attract every single woman. You'll just have a higher chance of attracting the right kind of woman. And so I think we would do really well. Something I've had to learn, like this is something I've learned, is that you got to just be okay that if they don't want to be with you, that's a good thing. You're like, okay, good. Now I know that this individual does not want to be with me. That doesn't make your value less. That just brings clarity that that relationship would have never worked anyways.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah, because, one of the things that you need to be in a successful, happy relationship is they have to choose you and commit to you. And if they don't wanna do that, oh, they showed you. They're not a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So, that's a
I
blessing.
Yeah, so I read this book called Rejection Proof. Great, great book to read. And the one thing that I learned the most out of that is that rejection is more about the other person doing the rejecting than you or the thing that's getting rejected. If you're the one getting rejected, it's just an opportunity to ask questions of, oh, why are you rejecting me? Or why, whatever it might be. You don't have to say exactly like that, why are you rejecting me? But, why are you making this decision? And, most of them won't feel comfortable being completely honest with you, but sometimes you can. And I've asked that question a lot. I'd be like, oh, what was it about, our conversation? And sometimes they mention it or they say it, or great ones are past girlfriends, right, where you've had a conversation, maybe you're in a good place and you can just be like, hey, what were some things that you could suggest I could do better at? And that doesn't mean you have to take it and you believe that it's true, but at least maybe it'll bring you some awareness. And so I think every rejection is an opportunity to become more attractive to other people.
Yes. That is so gold. I love that. That's fantastic. Well, that's great. So dating apps can be hard, getting people's attention, especially Douglas, like just for anyone listening, women typically have a lot more attention, a lot more options on dating apps than men do.
A lot more. The top 10% of men get 6 for every 1,000 for an average man. The average woman gets 100. So that's more than 10 times the opportunity.
So that makes sense why ghosting is so frequently
Yeah.
happening. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing to take into consideration too. Like hey, like expect like this is just part of it, like it's going to happen that you're going to get ghosted even though it's not pleasant, it's not great. Um but sometimes it's just that's all that that woman can handle.
Hey, if men are good at games, make it a game. Make it more about the no's than the yeses, right? Like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to get 20 no's," right? Because we all have some unknown number of no's in our life before we get to the yes, right? And if we knew how many of those no's we had, man, we would be plowing through as many of those no's as quickly as possible, knowing that we would have that, the like a number countdown, of how many no's I'm getting through. And then every day, you would just be doing everything you possibly can to get the no's. And that's really the attitude you should just have genuinely, right? It's just typically our insecurities are that rejection, that validation that we feel like we need. But that's why I think you have to do that self work. You have to believe that you're a good person. Like, I truly, honestly believe I'm a good man. Like, I believe that to my core. But with that, I also know I have a lot to improve on. There's a lot I need to do. But I genuinely am a good man at heart because I want to do good things and I want to become a good man. And I just know I have flaws. I have insecurities. I have anxieties and different things like that that I'm aware of that I just have to improve 1% better every single day.
Yeah, and you don't have to beat yourself up over those or stress out about those. I think something
But
that
take
I
accountability. Take accountability
yes,
with it.
I agree totally. Yes, you
Yeah.
should take accountability, be real with yourself. But I see so frequently guys creating these mindset mistakes, I guess, or making these mindset mistakes of, oh, I'm just a terrible person. Oh, I can't believe I did that again. All these negative self-talk things that are damaging to what you said, Douglas, of I believe that I'm genuinely a good man.
Yeah.
And I think when we don't believe that we're a good man, what we try to do is instead of improving ourselves, we try to prove ourselves to other
That's
people and get
that's a great
validation.
statement. Yeah.
Yeah, And that, like, whenever you try to prove yourself to a woman or impress a woman, what's going to happen? She's going to be like, okay, I'm getting low status signals from him. He's he's needy, he's below me, like this, he's trying to get something from me, like validation. I don't want a guy who needs validation. I want a guy who knows his value. And that's one of the most powerful attraction triggers for a woman, is seeing a man who knows his value.
Yeah. I think in dating, you probably know this, you've heard it all the time, is people want to ask about their attachment style or their love language, right? Those two things. It's like, I'm like, I think those are all well and good, but I think the thing that could be talked about more is conflict style. How do you resolve conflict? Do you like to, are you one that needs some space for a moment and you just need to say, hey, can we come back in 2 hours? I need some space. Like, I'm charged up here. And I know if we continue, I'm just going to continue to get more charged. Or are you someone that needs to resolve something immediately, right? Or whatever it might be, whatever your conflict style is, I think it's vital that that's a conversation you have. That is more important in understanding that for a healthy relationship than what your love language is. Everyone likes the fluffy and the good and the fun and all that kind of stuff. That's easy. That's why I say physical attraction or physical intimacy is the easiest out of all of them, because we're just naturally drawn to be, sexually attracted to the opposite sex. What's harder is emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, intellectual intimacy. Those things are much harder to like come by. And so I think when it comes down to like these conversations and questions and things that you have when you're trying to find, you have to have the harder conversations. You have to ask, how do you deal with conflict? That is really important to have. And it's actually a woman who taught me that in asking those questions to me, and I've loved it. I've loved that that was the question that she asked, because it made me think. I'm like, yeah, and realized that that was more impactful on our relationship than what my love language was.
Yeah, that is so good. I love that example because that woman, she just added value to you by
Yeah,
asking a good question. And regardless of if you dated her or not, you learned something valuable out of that. And I think that's a good thing to take with you in dating, is ask really good questions, learn and get to know people, and just give value. And you're making the world a better place, if nothing else, but you are getting closer to your goal of getting married to your
yeah.
person.
So I'm going to add on to that and what you talked about, like having structured. So for me, maybe it's because I am divorced, I've been married, I have kids. These types of things feel more comfortable and real to like ask. But I try to talk about five very important things. I think it's five. I try to talk about kids. Do I want to have kids? Am I going to have kids? Do you want to have kids? Is that important? Even when you're younger, now, all of these can apply to anybody, not just if you've had a divorce, but you know where are your stance on religion and politics? These are fundamental things that have a huge impact. What are your goals and dreams in life? Like, what direction are you heading? You need to talk about finances. You have to talk about how you handle money, what your relationship with money is, where you struggle, where you're well, are you in debt, are you not in debt, because that has such a huge impact on the relationship. And then you have to have a conversation about sex. I've realized within the church that's a conversation that's really difficult for a lot of people to have, but it is extremely important to have that conversation. Obviously, it's not going into like graphic detail about anything, but you need to talk about like what your relationship with is. What do you understand about where you find it to be important within the relationship? And because I believe that if you can't have a conversation about sex, you have no right getting married. You have to have a conversation about these things, because all five of those things fundamentally either become an asset to your relationship or become a liability to your relationship.
Wow. Those are five great areas. I love that. And not necessarily something you'd cover every single one of those on a first date.
By third date is my opinion. By the third date, you need to have had those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, I agree, like, that you need to not waste too much time going on too many dates without understanding
Yeah,
those
some of
kinds
those
of
are pretty
things,
easy
but
to have in the first date, right? They're pretty easy to have. What are your goals and ambitions? What's important to you and go in life? Even the one like, do you want to have kids or not want to have kids? That doesn't seem like a very hard conversation to like have. Um, for someone like myself who feels like he's done having kids, but I was dating like what I call never nevers, right? People that haven't had kids or never been married, having a child was really important to them. And so I always left it like open where it was whatever was best for the relationship, right? Like if it was like super important for this individual to have a child, and that was like way up. If I love this person and I really, really love my kids, then having a child with this individual would be really awesome. I just have to get over the aspect of like, I'm about to be an empty nester. I feel very young. A lot of people think I'm in my 30s. And so it would be a mental thing. But I've also been through that whole process from the beginning to the end. And I'm fine marrying someone who already has kids and helping contribute to do that. But it's a different thing to ask, do I want to have kids? Me personally, I would say I'm done, but I have always left it open or on the table, depending on the importances with the individual. You just have to be really clear on these things and be able to have these honest conversations. Because most people, as you said, they want to prove themselves by basically saying what they think they want to hear instead of saying what you actually believe or how you actually feel about a specific question.
exactly. Yes. That's right. Man, I love it. This is great. So, let me ask you this. So dating apps can be hard. Something that I recommend for anyone watching or listening, send me a DM on Instagram and I can get you my free online dating guide sheet. It tells you, like, how to have really awesome photos, profile, and also how to message really well, because
Gold.
like you
Honestly,
got you
it's
got to
gold.
stand out. If you're in the if you're if if women are getting so much attention, you got to stand out somehow if you want to get their attention, right? And so those are the kind of things that
I
you
would say that's
really
the
need to work
biggest
on.
mistake in online dating is poor picture choice and poor prompt choice and or answering the prompt, right? Like if I have to hear about like another hike or another like, some basic thing uh, that isn't, I don't know, not even just relatable, but like doesn't make you stand apart from everybody else. Like sometimes I'm like, this is what you chose? Like you're a beautiful woman, but like these are the pictures you chose? Or which one of you in the crowd of 10 are you? Like, and that's your first picture, you know? That's really, really difficult.
Yeah. Yep. Um, so online dating has its struggles. What about meeting in person, Douglas? Like, how has that gone for you? What have you seen that works? What's hard with that?
Yeah, no, great question too. For me, I thrive better in person. Myself, my kind of career has helped train me. Kind of do. I'm a director of sales. I'm not a sales bro. I've just been in the landscape industry for many of years, and I just know the industry very well. And so like right now I just focus on it's basically client relation, and so I'm always with the clients. I'm what's the client's needs, what do they need, communicating with them, all that kind of stuff. That has naturally helped teach me to be better in person. That doesn't mean I'm awesome. I make mistakes all the time. I flop. I go home shaking my head like what the heck. It happens to the best of us, right? But I genuinely feel like I do much better in person, but I also have to learn. Like I like to have conversations, and I'm not good at surface level conversations. I'm much better at deeper conversations, and sometimes I can get maybe too chatty and talk about different things. And so I really, really try to do really well with having a list of good questions that I genuinely want to ask in order to get to know this person better. Maybe it was something on their profile. Maybe it was just something that reminds me of her. Whatever it might be. Maybe we had other conversations in between and I want to expand on that conversation. So it's asking. And then you got to genuinely listen and then follow up. When I heard that the average number of questions that guys ask on a first date was 2, my mind was blown. I was like,
Wait a
how?
second. Where did you hear that? Where did you learn that?
I'll have to go find it for you, but it was in multiple places. But the average, and this is across the board, right? So maybe LDS people are much better at this than others, but across the board, the average number of questions that a guy will ask is 2.
Wow, that's
And
so
so
low.
women typically are carrying the conversation and they're exhausted from it. And so they go home like, man, I asked him and he talked about him the whole time, but he never was interested in me. And so I always approach dating as I want to get to know them. If they seem they don't want to get to know me, then that's clarity for me that that's not a relationship I want. But my goal, my effort is to get to know her, to ask her questions, to treat her well, to kind of show her the kind of man I am. But mostly, I want to get to know, who are you? I'm genuinely, I just love people. And I love to get to know people and hear their stories and what they've been through. And I tell you, I have heard the craziest stories ever dating. And I think it is such a privilege. I just heard something yesterday where why are specifically men so afraid to approach a woman or to try to set up a date and initiate a date when there's only 3 scenarios that can happen. Either it goes terribly bad and you have a great story, or it's neutral and it's like, meh, it's okay. Or it goes really well and you've got a great story. So, I mean, what do you have to lose?
You cannot lose if you go for it, right? You're winning. And you're getting, if it's a no, hey, you're one no closer, right?
That's right.
So I love it. Okay. So let's talk for a second about, well, okay, I want to ask this question. For all the guys who are in their early 20s or just maybe in their 20s, um, if there's 1 to 3 key pieces of advice in the dating realm and with their life, what would you tell them?
Oh man, I'll tell you, this is probably my favorite question you're asking. Say I want to go back to my 20-year-old self, right? 23-year-old self and talk to him. I would honestly say have clarity in one, who are you? That's present. That's the good, the bad, the ugly, the strengths, the skills, the lack, all of it. Be very clear on who you are. That is more important than anything else. Because from there, you can then ask yourself, who do I want to become? Basically, what direction am I going? That clarity, that can be a little bit more flexible because that can shift in time as life kind of happens. But you at least in that moment need to have a clear direction that you're heading and then know what matters most to you. Those would be the 3 things. That's kind of the pillars that I do all of my coaching on. And because that honestly, I put that into practice in my 40-year-old self, and it is gold. It is gold. It has helped me so much because when something happens, I can ask myself, did I act in the way that I wanted to act, in the way that I needed to behave? Would this woman be an asset to my life? Would I be an asset to her life? Or are we liabilities to each other? And so it just really adds that clarity uh, to it. You have it. So, I mean, I'll just briefly say for myself, one, I knew I was a son of God. I thought about all the things that I need to do better. I did a lot of experimentation on healing. What kind of healing tactics worked for me, didn't work for me. One of my favorites was journaling. I just found out that I liked to write and I liked to journal, and it was very therapeutic for me, as well as having open conversations with people so I could take it from my brain and speak it and get it out, because sometimes I'd be like, oh, actually that's not landing, that's not true, that's not how I really feel, or man, that sounds really egotistical, or that's not very compassionate, or just become more aware of myself, of what's going on internally. And then I came to know that at any point in my time, I could have left the church, lived a normal life as everybody else in this world and all that kind of stuff, and no one would have cared. I mean, obviously my parents and stuff, but like no one was coming to save me. I would have been able to make those choices and go out. But I just made a decision, like I believe in the gospel. I believe in that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the restored church, and I focused more on the relationship with my Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And so then from there, I knew that I wanted to get married in the temple, right? So that means I needed to live a life that stayed on the covenant path, that I was clear on what like intimacy boundaries I had to abide by the law of chastity. That's a interesting one for everybody. Everyone, even though they believe that they're abiding by the law of chastity, might have different boundaries, right? Some more strict boundaries that are important to them, maybe a little bit more loose boundaries. And it's really up to that relationship of what they feel is best for that relationship. And I always say that you have to stick to whoever has the strictest boundaries, and you have to be honest with that. And if you can't stick to that, then you need to leave that relationship. You do not want to be the person that drags them down to a lower standard than they have. You want to be someone that elevates yourself to their standard, or that supports them in what they want, because that's what marriage is going to be. And if you can't do that with like intimacy boundaries, then you're only going to have more complications in the relationship moving forward. And so all of these things, right, were just dominoes falling for me once I had that clarity and I knew what was important and what direction I was heading. And so, I could have been married multiple times over by this point, but I wanted to make sure that the direction I was going. And when I say stand, like I don't like the trope that's like, I don't want to lower my standards for them. It's not about lowering your standards, but you also have to ask yourself, am I the kind of person that's going to attract the kind of person I want in my life? And if not, then you have to change yourself in order to become more attractive, to attract the kind of women that you want, or men, that you want to be with. It always comes back to an internal thing than an external reason or fault, that if I just go through 1,000 of these, eventually someone's going to want to match with me. I always look at it like, I think if I haven't found the woman I want or attracted the woman I want, it's not their fault. It's my fault. And I need to take accountability for that.
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful, taking ownership and accountability for your life situation, and you have the power, the agency to do something about it, to change it, right? So those 3 things, can you say them one more time just to
Yeah. So
summarize?
have clarity of who you are. That's the good, the bad, the ugly, just everything about who you are in the present, right? Then you need to think about your future. Who do you want to become? What's important to you? What direction you're going? That kind of a thing. And then what I call the bumpers of life, right, is what matters most to you, right? So if marriage matters the most to you, you're going to date because it matters most to you. And so that's like your bumper. You're not going to go off and be like, "Nah, I'm never going to date. I'm never going to do that," because marriage is important to you. So knowing what matters most to you in your life, which typically is going to come down to relationships, it's going to come down to like a higher purpose, which, for many of us LDS, it's like God and returning to live with our Heavenly Father and those types of things. And just kind of creating this understanding of what matters most to you, like the non-negotiables of life, right? Those are the 3 things. So know who you are, know who you want to become or what direction you're going, and know what matters most to you.
I love that.
And
Those
then
are
act.
an act.
Then act.
Act accordingly. That's gold. Man, that is value right here. So if there's nothing else that people got out of this, I hope they take that away from this session. Let's talk about your coaching as well. Like, what, who are your ideal clients, and what do you do as a coach? And yeah, how do you help people? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we just kind of reviewed it a little bit. But my ideal client would most likely be a LDS man, probably more someone who is divorced, who's looking to overcome some of the hardships in life and kind of reset their life and move forward. Reason I say that's probably the ideal is because that's me, right? Like I'm coaching to my ideal client, which would have been me 3 years ago. And so uh, that would probably be the ideal, but I am willing and able to coach anyone. But with all honesty, is that I have the most life experience, the most ability to sit with and understand someone who has gone through divorce, who loves their children, wants to take care of them, that the gospel is important to them, and they really want to find a lasting relationship. It or any combination of those, right? Uh, and so that would probably be. And then the how I approach it is what we just discussed. You know, first session is going to be, let's be honest with who you are, where you're at, where are we starting from, like where are we at, and then where do you want to go, like what is your goal, what's the purpose of you having a conversation with me, what inspired you to want to use me as a mentor, and then establishing what matters most, the non-negotiables in life. Like you're not going to jeopardize, like no choice you're going to make is going to jeopardize these things in your life. And then once those things are clear, it becomes much easier to point in a direction and start making those small 1% improvements to head to where you want to be and to have confidence in that. And so it's helping individuals have those tools in their life because it's a really simple concept. And you know what? You can just take what we just talked about here and maybe change your life. And that's all you need. It's something that I was able to do. It took me 3.5 years to do it. If you're hoping to improve the time and the ease of doing that, then you might consider, coaching with me, and I can help you along on that process.
Yeah. Really, the value of coaching and getting expertise from mentors or other people, like the value is the time.
Accountability. Oh,
Accountability, yes, but it's like a shortcut.
oh yeah, it is
You
a
can
shortcut.
achieve so much faster, if you like, yeah, so and sometimes we don't know where to look for the right mentors or coaches, and so if you can connect with someone that really can lead you in the right direction, it's a major shortcut, and yes,
Yeah,
to your point, accountability is huge.
100%. I mean, I'll be very vulnerable. You know, the thing that when I left, like I wanted to understand. Like I was like, man, I just don't want to be a loser. There was shame, right? There's a shame. Here I am. I've been divorced. I'm a member of the church, 2 kids. You know, I'm a failure in many of these aspects. Was it all my fault? You go down these spirals of all these types of things. And then I just didn't really have anyone to give me the tools I needed, right? That doesn't mean they weren't good people, but the tools I needed for that time. And so I just started to absorb and start to take small actions. And so the contemporary thought leaders of today, you know, Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom is one of my favorites. Alex Hormozy, um, Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO, and these individuals that have incredible guests on their podcast just taught me a lot of different tips and tricks and tools and different things. And the entire time along the way, I was like, wait a minute, that reminds me of this scripture in the gospel, or that reminds me of the temple, or oh my gosh, that relate. And I just found that all of these researches and these fundamental things of what's not working or is working always related back to our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and the gospel. And I was just like, man, it is so powerful to be able to take modern day verbiage and vernacular and be able to relate it to the gospel of Jesus Christ in order to help people. Now, I'm trying to find my own voice and making that relatable to people as I create content and as I do things. But I think there's a power in the dual witness, that the things that these thought leaders and experts are teaching today align with the gospel and doctrine of Jesus Christ.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think the Lord commands us to do that. He says in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, seek ye wisdom out of the best of books. And back in the 1800s, they didn't have podcasts, YouTube, or all these things. They had books, and that's what they had. But if we apply the scripture to our day to day, it's seek wisdom out of the best resources.
And if you take the advice of Nephi, he did liken these things unto his people for their profit and learning. Like, these are the things that the scripture you just said, and then thinking about Nephi, who I think demonstrates the greatest amount of high agency. Like, he had so many things happen to him, and there was so many reasons for him to quit, but he kept making a decision. And the scripture that I think about all the time is when he talks to his father, I'll go and do the things that the Lord commands because I know he's going to provide a way for me. So for anyone listening to this, and marriage is really important to you, and you really take this dating seriously, and you take it from a place of what do I need to do to become more attractive, the Lord will provide a way.
I love that. Well, we will wrap it up right there. Douglas, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a phenomenal conversation and a lot of wisdom and value that a lot of people can benefit from. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I just want to thank you too, right? Like I saw your content. I followed you because I saw that there wasn't a lot of men coaches out there, especially here in Utah. The vast majority of them are female. And I reached out, you reached out to me. We had this conversation, we met for lunch, and you invited me on this podcast. And I just really want to thank you for the opportunity to help me on this journey that I'm on, in that we both just care about people and we both want to help people. And we believe families and marriages are vital to the plan of salvation. And we want men and women to find joy and happiness in building and cultivating families. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come on and share my thoughts, and for what you've taught me, and for your compassion and understanding. And it just means a lot. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Douglas. Thank you.